Okay, today I'm going to tie what is typically called a Zelon Midge pattern. This little midge should it rides really, really low in the water. It's a dry fly, but it sits right down and kind of imitates an emerging midge or even a spent wing midge. It could be kind of mistaken for a couple different things. This is a size 20. Lots of people have done a video on this before. I'm not claiming that I'm doing anything different. I just thought I'd make a fly tying video for it. So even though it's a Zelon fly, I'm actually going to use this Spirit River sparkle yarn in white. It's very similar to the Zelon. Pretty thin, flexible yarn. So to start this fly off, I'm just going to cut off about an inch or so of this, is what I usually start with. My thread is 10-aught black Veevus. This is size 20 Tiemco 100 hook. So I'm going to start this fly by just kind of dressing the hook with thread. I can either rip or cut this before I get too excited here. Glasses, size 20. Okay, so as I wrap back here, I'm going to get about to the barb is where I want to start. Take my little piece of Z-Lon or similar material. I'm going to lay it on there a little long because I do want to cut it. I'm just going to go ahead and secure this on the side, and as I pull it should rotate nicely up on top. My goal is to have this just tight on top, and I'm going to wrap single, not overlapping wraps forward to keep that body nice and thin. And as I approach where I'm going to tie in the wing, which is just a little bit towards the eye of the halfway mark, I'm going to go ahead and stop, take this, I'm going to cut it as close as I can get it without cutting my thread, hopefully. I'll set this little remaining piece to the side. That'll create my wing here in a second. I'm going to go ahead and taper that just slightly. Wrap forward to the eye, and then I usually come back, and that gives me a nice spot to tie my wing in. As far as the tail goes, I want it about the same length as the hook gap, so I'm just going to estimate that. This doesn't have a lot of stretch, so I'm going to pull it tight and just snip it. If anything, that might be a touch on the short side, but I like it. Wing. I'm going to take the remaining piece of Z-Lon here, and I like to tie it in kind of at an angle here, with the piece that's going away from me is angling towards the eye of the hook, and the reason I do it this way is it's a lot easier for me with my left hand, once I get a couple wraps here, to pull this around, and this is tough. I got to pull this so that I can then do a cross wrap coming across the other way here. I got to get that X pattern in there. Get that wing to sit straight. Sorry, I'm sure my hand's in the way right now. Try to slide back here. So what I'm getting here is a little cross wrap going across the top, and I usually give it, a couple each way. I want this to be tight. I want it to be secure. I can give one in front here. Give it another little X. I try to end with my thread behind the wing. Lift my wing up. I'm going to pull this back to about where the tail's tied in. I'm going to cut it off. What I'm left with here is a nice little wing. If I got any fibers that are kind of stray fibers, I can come in and nip those off. Clean it up. Although a spent wing or a emerging caddis, if you got a couple fibers that are wild, it's probably only going to add to the bugginess of this fly. Okay, last thing I'm going to do is just wrap a little bit of a thorax on it. I'm using this, let's see, this is Spirit River UV Fine dry dubbing, and the color I'm using is black, and it's kind of a nice black. It's got a few little itsy bitsy reds in it and some other colors. Don't want to use much of this, okay? Just the tiniest little bit here. Thin it down and just kind of dub it right onto your thread. Again, this should be very, very thin. I'll go ahead and give a wrap, a full wrap behind the wing. I'll X to the front, X to the back, X to the front, X to the back. And what I want to here is just to fatten this up just a tiny bit in the thorax. Get a little extra there. I'll just kind of pull that off. Pull this back. Give it a couple wraps. You can build up a little bit of a head on this. Not, I mean, when I say build up a head, I mean 2 wraps of the thread here. Give it a little whip finish. Sorry, I whip finish in a weird way. I come across the back. Couple turns on the whip finish. Lock that in. I set my scissors in here and just kind of pull the thread against it. Nip it off of there. Kind of look at the overall shape of my fly here. Make sure everything's on straight. Again, if I got any wonky little fibers, cut those off. There it is. Size 20 Z-Lon Emerging Midge.